It's AAU season now, so over the next couple of weeks, months, as there's this long stretch of live periods right into June basketball, then we're into the July AAU period. We're putting out some video breakdowns like we have in the past, but what we're looking at today is from the high school season. So if you're a big fan of the basketball being scored, you're looking for offensive breakdowns, that's not today's focus. Today we're looking at DePaul Prep's defensive masterclass against Richwoods, and this was kind of a staple for DePaul Prep throughout the season. In recent memory, definitely one of the most disciplined, focused, and physical defensive units that I've seen. And they did this against different competition. They did it against different styles of play. They did against teams that love to push tempo, teams that were more in the half court. It was kind of the same intensity, and they figured out how to dictate tempo, control space, figure out how to apply ball pressure without getting beat, being heavy in the gaps. There's a lot of just little things that stand out. So today, like we normally do, we'll run the film so it's not kind of, just handpicking a few possessions. We're going to run the film for the majority of the first quarter, a little bit into the second, for this breakdown. And I believe by the time we're done with this, the final score will only be 15-5. So not a lot of points being scored, but there's still a lot of great stuff to take out of this. And I think, for a team that ended up winning the 3A state championship, there's a lot to learn from this DePaul Prep team. So we're going to start right from the tip. Now, one thing to note from the jump, and this is something you should always look at from the beginning of games, is what the matchups are and why they are the way they are. So right now, every team has their first play of the game set. So DePaul Prep right now, they set up an elevator. He has space. It's not really intended to get a shot there. If you notice, we back up a little bit. He's catching this, not even looking at the hoop. Just going to be a little rip screen up top for Sommerville, who was one of the, if not the most dominant low post player throughout the season, against a great slate of teams as well. Headed to Rutgers, just skilled, physical. You see here angle-wise, DePaul Prep is ready for this. So ideally, if I was on offense, I'd be trying to get this screen a little bit underneath so it's at a real angle for a rip screen. But look at all the bodies knowing where Sommerville's at. You got Rashawn Porter on him right now, who's only a sophomore, but you wouldn't know it by looking at him. Jalen McElroy, who I think, to me, was leaps and bounds the best defender in high school in Illinois right now. And then what I really want to focus on is how they guarded Sommerville. That was really where the game flipped and where the game was controlled. He still ended up getting numbers, but nothing was easy. If you see right now, like I said, McElroy can guard anybody. They're bracketing him every time here. So you have 6'6", 6'7" with Jay in the front, and then Rashawn's back here. Again, another 6'6" body that's physical. No easy entry there. So a 3 from Tavy Smith there. Again, if you're the DePaul Prep, that's something you got to live with, honestly, right? Like if they're going to shoot a lot of perimeter jump shots, that's something I would imagine that they would prefer versus a ball getting, pounded into Sommerville on the block. So, they ended up getting the ball back here. Get a little ball screen. Again, the space that they're giving is strategic. They've played different teams throughout the year, and they had coverages that were specific to personnel. I think some teams just stick to their base. It's very sometimes difficult to be able to switch up and kind of have the personnel and guys who understand how to do that. There again, watch the positioning and understand the why. Can Sommerville hit this shot? Absolutely. If I'm McElroy, if I'm a Rashawn Porter, you got to live with that. And that's still a decent contest. It's not a great contest, but again, that's a long two. You have to live with that. And again, physicality up top. And one thing that I think cannot be underappreciated when you look at this DePaul Prep team, Rob Walls is an exceptional on-ball defender. PJ Chambers can guard all over the place. Makai Kavame is strategic. He's smart. He knows how to play angles. Really good at getting steals, being in the passing lanes. They got guys that can guard 1 through 5. They don't really have a position where there's a weak defender. And that really helped. So here we see Sommerville's got him on his back, but you notice they're just leaving this weak side, right? Like someone is always going to be wide open. They're bracketing Sommerville all over the place. It's a 2-on-1 before the ball even gets there. It's one thing to double once they get the entry. Against a player as good as Sommerville, that's a little bit too late because then he's going to be able to make those reads if he needs to, and then he's going to be able to go, possibly score over 2 guys once he heads back to the basket. Good help there. Then you see quality rotation to get to that spot. So again, the help side is super important. I think a lot of times when people watch defense, they look at, are you guarding your individual guy? Which is great, but this is also not 4th grade basketball. So you have to understand your help responsibilities and know that if you're playing against good enough players, you're not really going to always be 100% keeping the ball out of the paint. So here Rob Walls does his job, but let's watch Kavame on the weak side anticipating, right? Kind of out of control there with the basketball, but like that's where you're supposed to be. They're closing gaps, they're making it difficult, and it's only been a minute in, but this is kind of a consistent theme. So this is the first time DePaul Prep has a full offensive possession, and they were very methodical. They got to their spots. There was never a kind of forced activity, just little stuff like this, right? Like it's patient. It's making basic reads, which honestly at this point with the way that some kids fail to do so, kids that make basic reads have looked very valuable. Here just going to get a little down screen there, a little bit of a zoom action off of this. McElroy's going to come chase into a ball screen, and then there's not really a hedge, right? So here you have weak side, they're clearing out Walls. PJ, who is the best scorer on this team, is going to space out. So they're not really, if you notice, he's not even leaving his hip. So because this hedge was kind of just half there, and Sommerville on this point, this should be a block shot attempt. Doesn't get over quick enough. That's a layup. Just a simple read, right? Don't overcomplicate things. Get to where you need to. Kavame had a really big game in this one. So now to another defensive possession. Again, look, there's so much space and it's intentional. This is not lagging defense. They're not just sagging off just to sag off. This is, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us with your jump shots. So look, 1, 2, essentially 3 guys here ready to help. And every time Sommerville goes to either block, there is help on the backside. Look, Kavame is going over to help now. They're leaving the 2-on-1 here because, again, if they make that pass and they then make the shot, if you're DePaul Prep, you got to live with that. Still have not gotten a paint touch yet. And again, Coach Kleinsmith, I think, does as well as anybody in terms of mandating and also teaching how to guard. So it's physical, it's smart. They don't always necessarily have the best athletes, right? But what DePaul Prep does have is kind of 1 through 15. They have guys that when they come in, they know what they're supposed to do and they execute on that. And that is a testament to coaching. I think that's the whole staff kind of putting that in on a daily basis. But here, PJ just had a 5-second call, little quick, and then there's another jump shot. This point, it's been all jump shots. And for context, Richwoods is best at the rim. It's very important to understand that. Then Makai misses that. The reason that's important is you need to understand, even if they're missing the shots and it's a good jump shooting team, I wouldn't be saying that's good defense, right? If you're playing even like a Mount Carmel who they played in the championship and you were giving, Ciravino, you were giving Cam Thomas those same looks, I wouldn't be saying that's good defense because those guys can hit that shot consistently. For Richwoods, their game is at the rim. So if they're going to be settling for those jump shots, if you're DePaul Prep, that's a check off for you. So DePaul Prep has it back. It's a good idea there on that drive. And then, so now this transition defense is another great spot to watch to see how good a team is at guarding. This is where Richwoods is excellent and had been excellent throughout the season. So open court, Nothing there. In fact, that's a mid-range jump shot. They could have gotten better if you're Richwoods, but again, when you look at it, right, we still got 2 DePaul Preps back. So it really is a 3-on-3. You don't really have the sprint on the wing that you would like on the weak side. But the first thing you always want to do is you protect paint, you protect the three-point line. So here, they don't give them an option. Again, the trailing is not that quick to the point where they're actually getting a 3 off that. But if I'm in transition defense and it's a contested 15-footer, I'm taking that every time if I'm the defensive team. Still only 2-0. Like I mentioned, this is not going to be a high-scoring game. Good vision there. And Kavame, maybe he doesn't pass the initial, like, oh, he's maybe not the size. Maybe he's not as fast as maybe some other guards that are kind of talked about highly in the state. But if you just talk about solid, does what he's supposed to do, great vision, great pace, can score when he needs to, understands how to control flow. Basically what you want out of a point guard. That's what Kavame has done for the last 2 years with DePaul Prep. And I think seems very easy to translate to the next level. So we'll skip by these free throws, get to another possession of defense here. So see what they get into now. This is a set, send it over the top off the Iverson cut. They're going to enter it to the wing. Again, if you notice, this is another rip screen. It's just off a different setup. Instead of an elevator, they sent him over on an Iverson. They're sending 2 guys up to go set that screen for Sommerville. Let's watch the physicality and the angles that the defense takes. A lot of times we talk about offensive angles. Now that's 6-foot PJ Chambers sticking in there, putting his shoulder into Sommerville, getting low, and making him have to work to even get to the elbow. Like, watch how physical. Again, this is a 1-2 at the college level, point guard combo at the next level. He is making Sommerville change direction. Sometimes on defense, all you need is a simple redirect. If you can make the guy change direction, change from his initial line, you have done your job, especially when you have this switch, right? Now, again, personnel, right? If you're playing a different team, this is a missed defensive assignment. This is kind of the game plan. And even still, Kavame does run out. Now, he hits the 3. They didn't need to send 3 at Sommerville here, right? Especially because the one pass you would want to leave is a long skip. You don't want to leave the closest kind of one more pass. So, like, if you're here, really communication-wise, because Kavame is a low man right now, he really is supposed to be the one helping. But size-wise, it makes sense to have Rashawn come up, and then Makai go out quicker to that guy at the top of the key, and then you force the long skip pass. So like here, Rashawn's not really taking anybody away at this point. So it'd be better for him to probably switch with Makai, and now, that's a pretty rhythm shot. He does still come out to contest, but, I mean, that's a catch and shoot. And Richwoods is not a horrible three-point shooting team. It's not their strength, but you give a guy a wide-open rhythm shot. At this point in high school, a lot of kids can make a wide-open step-in 3 for the most part. So now they're back on offense. Again, moves side to side very well. Maybe could have waited a little bit longer there. Jay kind of had a size mismatch when he didn't have Sommerville on him. And then PJ, who, again, he was all-state this year, so it's not like he didn't get recognized at all. But when you just talk about efficiency and getting to your spots, and it doesn't really seem forced. It doesn't ever really seem like, and it's just a cross-screen, down-screen, it doesn't seem like he really ever had to do extra to get to his shot. It's 1 to 2 dribbles. It's efficient. He can get you to the kind of that Jalen Brunson area in the 10 to 15-foot range, work off of bumps. And had a terrific season. I think he's going to be a very good college player wherever he ends up. But that's just a solid cross-screen, down-screen to get to the pull-up. Again, paint is packed all the time, right? Here, you can drive if you want to. That's not the guy you want switched on you if I was Richwoods. So again, right now when they've been kind of above that second hash, they're not fronting as hard or even fronting at all. When it's been below, they're always kind of bracketing. But they do always have that second body. So here initially on the catch, this is a quick catch turn. You should have the cutter weak side. Notice how quickly PJ Chambers closes that space. So for this to work for Richwoods, you got to be cutting when the ball's in the air if you're this baseline cutter. Because by waiting, PJ Chambers does his job, takes away the layup here. Again, team that does most of their stuff in the paint. It's a long two. You got to live with that. It's always a give and take on defense. You're always going to be giving up something for the most part. It's hard to take everything away. You just have to pick your battles there. It was a good take from Walls. Wasn't able to finish. Only 4-3 right now. Again, like I said, not the highest scoring start. And again, it's never easy. You have to do a double clutch here because Jay comes over to contest. If he just lets him get this layup, this is an easy left-handed layup, right? No, you have to go through me or go around me to get to this finish. And then would have liked a better box out. So if we go back a little bit, again, just knowing personnel, right? Like the one guy I'm going to box out every time is going to be Lathan because that's the one who's averaging 3-4 offensive rebounds a game. So if you're really any of these guys, but especially Rashawn, like get back earlier, get inside position. So this has to be a player control foul going up for the rebound. They still had enough bodies in there, right? Probably maybe got away with a push on the rebound. And then that's a steal. They're going to get the transition finish here. And again, right now, of their 5 points, and I know DePaul Prep only has 4 at this point, wide open catch and shoot 3, which again could have been communicated better. And then kind of that cherry pick dunk after Sommerville had fallen down. It's not a bad take. Definitely a makeable shot. And then there's the activity from McElroy on the glass. I think we had a TV timeout coming up, so we'll skip ahead for this. All right, so we'll go back to baseline out of bounds. So this is after the TV timeout. Going to go 4 across here. This is just very well executed. I mean, you get them falling asleep. Now, discipline-wise, you got to maintain that inside position if you're on the weak side defensively. But again, personnel matters. If you flipped Jay and PJ in this situation, maybe you don't have the same response because they're basically face guarding, trying to take PJ away for the most part. They're trailing and all their focus is on this stagger right here. So really, if they cheated it enough, you could have seen probably a slip here. But Walls does a good job of setting it up. And then again, they're staying hip to hip. That's understanding scouting report and how they've been guarding this season. And then Walls gets a good backdoor. You got to win some of these to win these playoff games. You have to win some of the baseline out of bounds, sideline out of bounds battles. So good execution out of the timeout there. Good talk on the switch. Again, we start to get to that kind of second hash there. You're really starting to get the bracket heavy. Again, when it was higher up, they were playing more behind. They'll live with that elbow jump shot if it comes. But you see Jay here, that's a long skip pass. The only thing that I would say is if Kavame could have his hands up a little bit more, or at least one of them tracing the basketball, just to deter this angle. Obviously, he doesn't know that that's, the pass there. But because they are giving that extra space, having at least one hand up to kind of get in that vision, affect that a little bit would be helpful. Still doesn't see it. And you notice as he sees his eyes go up, his hands start to go up a little bit. So that's good to see. Rashawn did a great job fighting. Him and Jay did a terrific job defensively. And then there's the activity. Like, there's not a better defender in Illinois high school basketball than Jalen McElroy. There's guys who can really guard. I don't think when you talk about someone who can guard everybody, he has shown that he can and will continue to do so. So really good activity there. Kind of spearheaded all that. Again, PJ's not biting on that shot fake because you're living with it. Got the bracket again. Right? This team, DePaul Prep moved as one unit on defense, and that is so difficult to even do at the college and professional level because the level of movement and need for 5 guys to be disciplined, locked in at all times. So now this is an isolation. You're just letting Kavame guard there. Wasn't really much spacing on the drive from Sommerville. Then again, look how high up they are. They're not really trying to front that, but they are bringing the extra bodies. right? And you always force the longest skip pass. It's a good wall up. A good job of finishing it on the glass. Don't ever take for granted the importance of having a good defensive rebounding team. You could be phenomenal with your half court stuff. You could always stop that initial action. If you can't get defensive rebounds, you're useless on defense. So DePaul Prep, I think, throughout the year did a really good job of one and dones. So now they're gonna, again, understanding personnel, get into this ball screen. Didn't really have to set it. Would have liked to flip there. So if it is going to be flat, which at this point I can't really tell, to be honest with you, I don't know if this was supposed to be angled or if they were just looking to see. At this point, though, they lose contact. This is a slip or a short roll to get to kind of this Big Ten logo, and then from there you can make your decisions off of that. So not the end of the world. Again, there's no shot clock that's holding them back. Got about a minute and a half left in this quarter. Now, if I'm Tavy Smith, I'm pretty upset because Rashawn Porter's a big kid. I know he's only a sophomore. But if I'm getting hit like this on a screen, we're probably going to have issues. Got to communicate a little bit better there. And then if you notice, really on both sides, I mean, Richwoods, I think for the most part, has done a pretty good job so far of moving their feet, keeping out of the paint, contesting outside of that very first possession. And again, this was a pretty good matchup. Richwoods had a gauntlet of a run to even get to the Final Four. Only 6-5. So again, this was not going to be a offensive breakdown by any means. Space, giving room, going underneath, still contest. But again, I'm living with that. Even if they make those threes, right, that's still the game plan. And there's another one. There just has to be – there's nothing worse as a guard than a blindside screen at half court that could have easily been called out. Like, that shouldn't happen 2 possessions in a row. All right, so we got about a minute left. And again, the pace, the patience, no one's in a hurry. You rarely are going to just see some just one-on-one early in an offense. It's a good job jumping that passing lane defensively from Richwoods. But you don't really see a lot of one-pass, no-pass possessions with DePaul Prep. You see a lot of guys making the extra one, and a lot of times you'll see those, 15, 20, 25-second possessions where it's really looking to get the best shot. With 51 left, I think that's the second foul there. So look, good post up. Best low post option for them this year. And then, again, I mean, Rashawn Porter is going to be a Division I player. He already has a couple Division I offers right now. He's going to continue to get in better shape. He's got a lot of tools, can put on the ground really well. If he can consistently start making these type of shots and even out to the three-point line, I think mechanically it actually looks pretty good. He's going to be a problem because he can already, anything within 15 feet, he's going at anybody. Doesn't really matter the size. And again, always help. If you're Richwoods, though, the one thing that I was waiting to see was a really aggressive elbow high post flash. Like, I didn't ever see this baseline guy really make a hard cut. That's kind of how you blow up the bracketing and the face, the fronting on the kind of ball side. If he flashes hard here and catches it, now again, you are going to have to make some of those shots. But if you flash hard and he naturally is going to come to you, now you have no help over the top. You can just dump that off. But without that, now you're kind of just playing 4 out, 1 in, 5 out to an extent at times if he's already kind of at the free throw line. Got about 10 seconds left. They get a foul there. See what they do on this baseline out of bounds. So like the activity, only thing I'd say is just be sure that you're getting that just because of who you have coming off. And then that's just really good bodying up there. And then they come up with the loose ball. I don't think they hit this. So Last thing before we skip ahead to a little section of the second quarter. You notice here, after Jay makes that, I mean, he's making good effort to come get a steal or tip on this. But when he gets the ball, and now you have your best defender out of the picture, watch how Porter comes in and steps over to either take a charge and then will use his physicality to absorb the hit, and then he still contests the shot. Right? You can do both. It doesn't have to be I'm only trying to take a charge or I'm only trying to block a shot. You can contest without leaving your feet first. You can also be physical. You can also be in position to take a charge. Okay, so the last piece that we're looking at, this is only about a 2-minute stretch, but it's 10-5 at this point, and we're going to see DePaul Prep stretch it out a little bit here, but this is only going to be about 2 minutes worth of gameplay, right? I just want you to watch the excellence on defense for this 2 minutes. Again, we watched pretty much the whole first quarter, but this 2 minutes to kick off the second really is a microcosm of what made DePaul Prep so good on defense. So here you see a nice stunt from A.J. Chambers, good rotations, and then he takes a charge. That is textbook stepping over, stunting, getting back to your guy, helping your teammate out. So we got a DHO. The DHO, they're not going to switch. A.J. Chambers, very talented sophomore, is going to be really solid for them. Good stunt. Now you got, okay, he maybe stunted a little bit too deep, so now you need the help there. Kavame is going to come over. Weak side, there's not really activity here. So because there's no action on the weak side, this is pretty easy help. Watch how early Jay gets over. Early help is incredibly important. And I know the restricted area is not supposed to matter in high school, but he was outside of it even if this was a college game. That's great rotations. And again, for a guy who is a shot blocker and a rim protector, to still have the confidence, IQ, willingness to come over and take a charge says a ton, right? So Richwoods at this point, applying a lot of ball pressure as they should. You got to try to get the tempo back, get possessions back, and they actually cut it a good amount in the second half. Really nice play. So that's, AJ to PJ Chambers. AJ, another really steady guard for them. There's never a bad time to have too many good guards, to be honest with you. They had a bevy of them this year. So this is just a simple baseline pin down. They're going to kind of treat it as a misdirection because they really could send PJ off of a stagger here if they ended up getting there quick enough to flip. But curling right back. Now remember, to this point, Sommerville had not really been venturing out to guard on the perimeter very much. So this is actually a perfect play because there's no help. It's just going to be a catch and shoot. He didn't really stay tight and connected defensively there. So what I mean is, especially if you're guarding someone this good at shooting the basketball, you got to be hip to hip the whole time. As soon as you lose contact, you either need a switch or you need your big to go out and run. And I don't think there's that communication. You definitely can't. That angle's not going to get there for a shooter with a release that PJ had. So that gets them up to 13-5. So really good offense right there. Getting into another set now. Again, a lot of space, but there's always somebody in the paint. Very rarely will you ever see a DePaul Prep possession on defense where there's not guys helping. You see Coach Kleinsmith telling them to come over. Why? I haven't even gone ahead yet. I bet you this is a cross screen. Right? They already know because there's probably a baseline of 3 to 5 sets that every team generally goes to a lot. They know it's a cross screen, and I could just tell you from the setup, Sommerville's not just going to be standing here, right? You clear it out, and your hope is to get an empty kind of one-on-one here on this block. Only thing I would say is potentially here get a little bit of a better bump when he comes off. PJ does a great job of getting in front of him on this. So like, look how quick he's cutting him off, and he's one thing for guards to learn from this. If you can use your lower half from a leverage standpoint, even against like a 7-footer, you have that center of gravity typically that is going to allow you to be an irritant. Now, to be honest with you, at a certain point, it doesn't matter because you don't have the height. But what PJ's doing right now is he is taking the legs away from Sommerville. So if they do throw a jump ball, he's not going to have the same spring as if PJ kind of just did a no contact front. And then again, you still got the bracket, you got Kavame, you got everyone loading up. It's good help. Not really a plan there off the catch. Got to be a little bit more decisive. Um, Again, this is a 4-guard lineup right now. So you got PJ Chambers battling with Sommerville, but he has Sommerville almost at the elbow. So I would consider that a win for DePaul Prep. It's good defense. So 13-5. Calling another set here. Again, even the way that they move in the offense is just speaks of discipline. That's a good take. They got to take a timeout after that. Again, don't ever take the little things for granted. And this is as much on Jay as it is on. I mean, obviously Bakai made a good drive, but you see the way that he seals off 6'10" to make sure that Makai gets this layup, right? So off of this little brush screen, it's not, kind of just gets out of there. Watch how underneath Jay is completely holding him off. That made that a wide open layup, right? Walking right down the lane. By the time the contest came over, it was too late. Right now, I have Jay. I know he's going to D2 St. Leo. I have him as like top 15 kid in the class. And the reason for that is because defense is the one thing that translates. Elite defense has always translated. So I don't think there's many Division I players that Jay couldn't guard. But I also see these little things like the ability to seal there, the activity, all that. I think that makes a special player. And don't let the level confuse you. Like, success is success, and I think a lot of kids on this DePaul Prep team, I think, are going to be successful right away in college. But the biggest thing from this breakdown was just the level of defense, right? Like, you see guys that are guarding, you see guys that are committed to doing it, you see it all the time, nonstop. That's what you love to see. At least that's what I love to see, because at the end of the day, when you have guys that guard all the time, you are in every game. And DePaul Prep was not just in every game, they blew teams out because of the defense. The offense was solid as well, but when you hold teams to under 30 points consistently, you're in every single game that you're in. And I think a lot of times that gets taken for granted. And I know we're in AAU season, so this kind of felt like a timely breakdown because I have seen a lot of really questionable defense to this point, AAU-wise. It's never a bad thing. It has never hurt you to guard too much. It has never hurt you to rebound too much, talk too much, defensively at least. Those things translate, and I think that's why DePaul Prep was as dominant of a 3A team as they were this year, because they were able to do that on a consistent basis.